Education and Communities meeting. This meeting has been held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public past obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policy available through the Council's website. Members of the Council remember that we should follow the Council's established meetings protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. So with that, can I ask for Dan for any apologies, declarations and roll call?
We have an apology for absence from Councillor Law, with Councillor Crowther substituting, and Mr Doherty and Reverend Donaldson, who are two of our church representatives. The convener will now move to the attendance roll call before proceeding to the declarations of interest. Can the following members please indicate if they're present at the meeting either in person or remotely? Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brennan. Present in person. Councillor Clougherty.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Crowther.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Daisley.
Present remotely.
Councillor McGuire.
Present.
Councillor McVeigh.
In chamber.
Councillor Moran.
In the chamber.
Councillor Quinn.
Present remotely.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Wilson.
Present in the chamber.
Reverend Burt. Miss McEwen. And Miss MacDonald.
Present remotely.
Are there any further declarations of interest to those intimated at the earlier communities business?
Okay, then. Just before we go on to agenda item number 7, can I welcome Fiona? Fiona, welcome to the Education and Communities Committee. This is the education part of it, so you're most welcome. Hopefully you'll have a valuable input and enjoy the session.
Where's Fiona?
Thank you.
Fiona, is that, oh, sorry, Fiona, you can introduce yourself.
No, sorry, my first meeting with yourselves was the last session, so I got a bit of an introduction and an expectation set at that point. So it's great to be back, and I'm one of the parents to be volunteering on the committee.
Welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can we move to agenda item number 7, which is the revenue budget update report? Ian.
Thanks, convener. So this is the education revenue budget report for period 9, and that's up to the end of December 23. The education revenue budget is currently 105.006 million, and the latest projection is an overspend of 161,000. That's a decrease in the overspend of 141,000 since the last committee. Section 3.3 of the report, that lists the main variances responsible for the projected overspend. Most of the variances are the same as previously reported to committee. But I think it's worth highlighting there's a new one this cycle. It's a projected underspend of 29,000 for cashless catering maintenance, and that's a one-off saving because we've switched to a new system and the maintenance isn't required in year 1 of the contract. It's also probably worth noting at long last we're seeing an improvement in the school meal income. There's been an improvement of £70,000 in the school meal income. And it may well be by the end of the year we can just about get to being on budget for that. So that's a bit of good news for that at long last. So moving on, section 3.4 and appendix 4 provides details of earmarked reserves. Expenditure is currently ahead of plan by 2%. The year-to-date expenditure is 70% of the projected total for the year. I'm not requesting any environments this committee cycle, so committee will just be asked to note the projected overspend of 161,000 for the 23-24 revenue budget up to period 9. And committee are also asked to note that earlier today, the communities part of the committee, I was reporting an underspend of 151,000 for that, and that partially offsets the projected overspend for the education part of the committee, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you for that, Ian. I'll look for any questions. Can't see any questions in the room. Can't see any questions online. Can we agree the report?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Can we move to the Education Capital Programme progress? Eddie, would you like to take us through this?
Yeah, thanks, convener. Education Capital Programme, main activity on that now is through the Life Cycle Fund. The Life Cycle activity is summarised as in Appendix 2, and all the work that we've taken forward across the estate over the current financial year, and that programme is drawing to a close, and we're well prepared and preparing for the next year's programme, particularly the summer activity. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Eddie. Questions? Elizabeth?
Thanks, Convener. It's really just to commend the team for Appendix 2. I just think it's a really succinct and useful format for how we can get a quick overview of what the life cycle work is that's on the table and that will emerge as time comes. So I think I just wanted to say I think Appendix 2 is a really great way for us to see what's happening at this stage in the capital programme for education. So thank you.
So well done, Eddie. And again, the very fact that this time you've got the monetary amounts and also exactly what's been spent in each school. Do we have any other questions? Can't see any in the room, and I can't see any online. Can we agree the paper?
Agreed.
Thank you. Can we move to the Education Methodology report? Ruth?
So this is the update on the committee delivery and improvement plan. So bringing your attention to some of the pertinent paragraphs. Paragraph 3.6 is outlining all the actions that are complete. 3.7 is highlighting the one where there's been some slippage, and that's particularly the historically slavery, the heritage trail. We started work on that. We looked at perhaps delivering in a different way, but that's still ongoing. And 3.8, of course, the GME provision can't start until the new academic year. Perhaps 3.11 is worth bringing out, and that's particularly looking at the LGBF, the local government benchmarking framework satisfaction levels. So the satisfaction levels have dropped, and that's in the context of the satisfaction levels dropping overall in the country, and perhaps the way the survey is done is not necessarily the users of the services. For instance, the users of the libraries aren't necessarily the ones targeted to be asked. It's the general population. But we do have to keep an eye on satisfaction levels, and we can see that perhaps the satisfaction level with the schools is perhaps not where we would hope it would be, and we need to keep going with that, especially since in applying students so well against national comparators for against most of its indicators. Happy to take any questions on specifics.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. Can't see anything online. Any questions in the room? No questions in the room. Can we agree the report? Oh, Elizabeth.
I expected a question online actually, but
Oh.
there you go. So just in terms of the Gaelic Medium Secondary, obviously it can't start until August. We get that, but is everything on track for it being able to start in August? Obviously there's the recruitment of teachers, etc. So where we are with that.
So at this moment in time, we're going through all of the placements and the rights to do placement requests. However, Michael put stand up. We're fully expecting that some people will come to a Gaelic provision, and I know that we've started the advertising for the posts, but I'll let Michael come in with the answers.
Michael?
Through you, convener. Yeah, thanks, Ruth. Yeah, we are making progress. Councillor Robertson, we've got an advert going out on Friday for the teacher for this post. The advisory group continues to meet regularly, and we update them in respect of the progress that we're making, and the planning for the provision itself. The curriculum planning is underway, and Elaine McLaughlin has oversight of that.
David?
Yeah, just want to comment, big page 72, exclusions from secondary schools. Over the various terms, 121, 65, 66, 21. I don't think this is necessarily a bad figure. I think in order to keep the discipline within the secondary school or classes, we do need a certain number of exclusions. So I don't think this is a bad report. Thank you.
I'll bring Ruth in first.
Oh, you want to say something about that?
So you'll know we don't set a target for exclusions. Head teachers only exclude as a last resort where there is no other alternative, and we do look for other alternatives. So it's not that exclusion is the only way of keeping up with this in our schools. There are lots of different ways of doing that. We measure well against comparators, and certainly very well against our family comparators. But you'll notice that we don't set a target for exclusion because head teachers do have the right to exclude if it's necessary.
Thank you.
I could not say it better myself, David. Any other questions? I can't see anybody online. Can we agree the report?
Agreed.
Thank you. When we move to Michael, Michael's going to give us the overview and local and national initiatives. Michael.
So through you, convener, there's quite a lot in this update report, so I won't go through all of it, but please feel free to ask questions about any areas that I maybe don't talk specifically about. I'll take 3.1 and 3.2 together. There is currently an ongoing process at the Scottish Parliament in respect of debates that are being held around the decision on the way forward in respect of qualifications in particular. We're expecting to hear something maybe over the month of May with a final decision about that. We actually had Professor Hayward come and speak to all head teachers a couple of weeks ago, which was really fantastic to hear from her directly, and she wasn't necessarily giving us any inside information. So the process is ongoing. We haven't had any more consultations to complete, and there's a bit more detail there across 3.1 and 3.2. At 3.3, I've indicated in there that we were expecting a report to be published on national data around PEF spending the week beginning the 11th of March. I've checked again today. That's now due out the beginning of April. What 3.3 seeks to do is update committee on the fact that we continue to have PEF funding going into our schools, obviously. And in that regard, we are tracking and monitoring the spending of that money to ensure a maximum spend, where historically a lot of authorities have had underspending. Inverclyde is now in a position where we are fully maximising the spend, and as you'll see in one of the later paragraphs, we're reporting that we are around about 100% spent of the PEF with slight overspending, and that's partly to do with the timing of the PEF money coming to local authority, that classic sort of financial year, academic year end set of issues, pay awards for increasing salaries, and the planned overspending, which is allowed from a couple of our schools to embed interventions. But the important message here is that we monitor, track and support and challenge our schools to ensure they make the maximum use and are having the most impact of the money allocated to them. There's an update there at 3.4. I think you are aware that the Regional Improvement Collaboratives model is sort of being wound down. That's tapering concept again, and this is outlining the financial side of that. We're now on to a 50% reduction in funding, and as you'll note as well, directors and chief education officers have been meeting along with the board to agree potential scenario plans to work in the future, and more will come to committee after that's been through the Glasgow City Region Education Committee later on in May. 3.5, I think since we last met, the PISA results were published in December, and I put in a link for you for the full analysis of that in terms of what that's looking like. Obviously, one of the messages there is about an issue that's picked up later on about mathematics, and there is currently an education and thematic review being carried out around mathematics, and we've had one school visited last week and another school to be visited just after Easter in relation to that. And from that, stemming from that, at 3.6, a decision has been taken by the Cabinet Secretary to introduce a more systematic improvement curriculum cycle in terms of reviewing on an ongoing basis the curriculum. As I've said, the first focus is maths, and there's to be a national maths specialist through a secondment coming into post to take up some of the work around that. 3.7, as we knew it at the time, the digital learning, we're still not sure exactly how this is going to pan out, but if there is anything coming to individual devices, it will be on a targeted model, which is kind of outlined at 3.7. I've updated, I think, about 3.8, so I'll move on. When we were last at committee, we had also reported that we had responded to a question regarding the difference between our teacher numbers at the census in October, and we wrote, as you're aware, to the Scottish Government with mitigations as outlined there in the second paragraph, particularly around the reduced funding of the Scottish Attainment Challenge and the earmark reserve that we had historically had around the early years funding. Those mitigations were accepted, and no funding will be withheld from councils in the next budget settlement. However, in a letter from the Cabinet Secretary in February 24, further information was shared that teacher numbers should be again held in the 2024 census, that's this coming October, and that teacher number figures from the 2023 census will be used as the baseline as it was in December 23. We are expecting to see a reduction in our overall FTE because we will see a further £750,000 coming out of the Attainment Challenge in April, this coming April, which will equate to approximately 15 FTE teachers. We believe that we will be contacted to have a discussion about this from the Scottish Government. At 3.10, just an overview of a forthcoming STEM festival, which is quite exciting. This is coming through a piece of work done by a lead officer role that we have at the moment, which is partly funded, and a huge amount of fantastic work has been done across the authority. And one of the things we've long wanted to achieve is this STEM festival, and that's happening in June 24. And finally, at 3.11, I say finally, I think yes it is, an update there on education projects related to vaping. In the first section, we have been piloting some vaping sensors in one of our secondary schools. I would emphasise we are still at the piloting stage. It's very new technology. We had picked up on this from another local authority doing a similar thing. One of our biggest blockage or issues is Wi-Fi connections, given that they need to be located discreetly in toilets above panelling, and it can make it very difficult for the Wi-Fi to get through to the devices. However, where we have had some success, it has had a positive impact and has seen a reduction in this happening in school. So we're continuing with the trial. We're getting close now to being able to roll it out, but obviously each individual school setting provides its challenges in terms of its physicality in making this work. And the second section there is just an overview of ongoing input in schools related to vaping. So vaping, as we've stated here, was introduced into the substance use framework in 23-24 and is being used by our newly appointed substance officers, where they discuss nicotine being a drug. There's a variety of resources being used, and there's further resources that have been shared with us from various sources that we have shared on into the secondary schools, and just continuing to ensure that that is being promoted and support provided for young people where this is an issue for them. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Michael. That's a full report. I'll bring David in first.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that report. I've been very encouraged by how we've used the PEF funding. It's really worked very, very well within our schools and is proving to be successful. I'm also pleased to see the PISA results I mentioned. For a while, the Scottish Government pulled out of international tests, and now we're back into them. It's I'm glad you've given us a reference to the full programme, the full report. It is very disappointing that we are now behind England in the PISA test, and they're ahead of us. Because for centuries, our education system was better than the English system, and it's caught up and overtaken. But I would hope that now that we're back in the test, we'll use this as a springboard to move on and overtake England at some stage.
I think that's more a comment, David, than
It is a comment, yeah.
Like
I feel the better of it.
It's good. Francesca.
Thanks very much, Davina. I'll make a couple of comments first and then I promise I do have a question. Just picking up on Councillor Wilson's comments about the PISA results, that's I sort of find myself in some agreement with you, and I was asking if we're moving into territory where some other international testing or measurements are coming back into play, such as the pearls and the TIMSS as well. So it's good to see that, to get those kind of indicators. But yeah, and I suppose going on a bit to the next point of 3.6, that we've known for a long time that Scotland has a maths problem, and there's been reports on that. We've seen interventions like Maths Week Scotland. We've talked about people who are kind of, accepting of saying, well, I'm rubbish at maths in a way that they wouldn't necessarily say the same about literacy. I feel as confident to admit that. So I think, we just need to be aware of that in the national context and say it's good, I suppose, in some ways to get another intervention, but when are we going to see the interventions that are actually going to make the change? And I have to be clear, I'm talking nationally and not about Inverclyde in this case, because I know people are doing great things, and we will see the impacts. When Michael's outlined there about the reduction in the Scottish Attainment Challenge funding, and I know the coaching and modelling officers were such an important part of that funding, and we would have had them for literacy and numeracy, and into Attainment Challenge schools making a big difference. So that is regrettable. But another comment briefly about the appointed substance officers, and great to see that they are incorporating vaping into that framework. So I think that's really a positive step. My question, I suppose, is about the STEM Festival, which sounds great. As Michael said, that's really exciting to hear about. I would want to be careful as elected members, not expecting some of these interventions to do too much heavy lifting. But my question about it would be around girls and women's participation, because we want to raise the profile of STEM in Inverclyde and to make links into STEM careers, absolutely, to give young people that science capital advantage families will have. So we would fully support that, but I would also like to ask if that would be particularly male and girls and women's participation areas to make sure these careers as attractive as possible for and not have a launch history of big girls and women, but we know that they're not doing big examples in that area.
Michael?
So through you, convener, so there will be, through the festival, a number of presenters, both male and female, both across the school and community events, and they will be able to discuss their careers within STEM, and they'll also be delivering hands-on workshops promoting very much their role and the role of women in STEM careers. We've also got a quality specialist from an organisation called Equate who've been invited to come along and be part of the festival. And within that, we are trying to target the building of skills and confidence in STEM amongst young women and girls. So again, we're hoping that through having a really inclusive, interactive set of sessions that this will happen. And again, we've got young STEM leaders coming from primary and secondary schools, again, male and female, and there's going to be a girls only event held during the week for the festival, and that's going to be done in conjunction with Morton in the community.
Thanks, Michael. I'm not going to ask Councillor Brennan back for questions. Are you okay? I'm going to go to a next question, and that's from online. I'll take Natasha first and then Pam after that. Natasha.
Thank you very much, convener. So first of all, I want to echo the great work that has been done through things like the Inverclyde STEM Festival. It's great to have this sort of event to highlight to people just how these vital subjects can be fun and engaging, and hopefully we'll see an uptick in the number of young people engaging with these subjects at school and in the wider community. I was going to mention about PISA results and about PEF and about Scottish Attainment Challenge, but I feel like my other council colleagues have already covered this fairly well, and I can appreciate Michael and Ruth that with PEF and Scottish Attainment Challenge money being reduced, how difficult it can be to try to still make sure that we're making an impact in those who need it most lives. My question is about the vaping though. So it's great that we're doing this trial because vaping is a major issue across our country. And I understand that there's issues potentially with the Wi-Fi, with doing it in the toilets. But my question is, do staff and teachers stop vaping in other public areas of the school? And then following on from the trial kind of stuff, is there any plans to roll this out to P6 and 7? I'm very aware that I've seen children from primary schools sometimes using vapes. And do we need to partner with Trade and Standards of the police to enforce legal sales of vapes? Because I do feel like most of this issue could be stemmed if we stopped it at the source of obtaining the vapes themselves.
I'm going to bring Ruth into that one. Ruth?
So the question about other areas in the school vaping centres, it tends to be the toilets where the young people are going to vape the most often. And I'm not aware of it being a big issue around the corridors and the social areas for obvious reasons, because that's areas where teachers are, so they're going to get caught. There are no plans at the moment to bring in schools any vaping sensors for P6 and 7. Remember, this is a pilot for just the secondary schools at the moment. From the information I've had back from the primary schools, it hasn't been a big issue on school premises, but accepting that people are starting this younger and younger. With the trading standards, I know that a report went to Environment Resources about spot purchasing, and I know that there will be some spot purchasing or check purchasing undertaken, and also with the fact that they wanted to make sure that the vapes are not on sale for the young people, and that was considered as ENR.
Natasha, is that okay?
Yes, thank you so much, Ruth, and thank you for clarifying that it's not an issue generally seen around the school, that is more in the toilets. And I'll bring back the P6-7 question if we decide to roll it out further after the trial. Thank you.
Okay. Pam,
Thanks, Convener. Yes, welcome the report. It's always very interesting. Particularly wanted to comment on the imaginative and consultative approaches to the vaping problem. It's a constantly changing situation, and I really want to congratulate officers because the less reinventing wheels we have to do, the better. And if there's a good practice and something we can learn from somewhere else, I really commend it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes,
Just to say, our colleagues in health and social care as well and health improvement have been very good and willing partners in this as well. So it's not that schools feel isolated and have no problem.
Thank you, Convener. I was kind of unsure whether to ask these questions, but I think it's an important issue which I think we have to discuss, Convener, to keep it bear with me. There was an EIS survey in Aberdeen a couple of months ago, and a survey of 800 teachers were surveyed, and 50% reported violent incidents take place in the school every day, and 1/3 said that they had been physically assaulted. So my questions are obviously to Ruth and Michael on this. What is the situation do we have in Inverclyde, and what steps are we taking to support our staff? Firstly. Secondly, inclusivity is a good thing. I think, in my opinion, I would just like your views on that, and what ongoing impact does that have on kids, the other kids in the class where something happens? And thirdly, in the light of the aforementioned report, the EIS report, have you or do you intend to spend some time in the classrooms to get a good understanding what is happening in the classrooms locally? And when I say time, I'm thinking days rather than hours, even a week, just to get I understand what's happening. And these are genuine questions born out of concern former staff in the schools, and they're certainly not intended to stigmatise anybody, but I'm hearing these stories of incidents happening, and I think we need to look after our staff, and I think this is an important issue. Thank you.
Okay, I'll bring Ruth in first of all, and if Ruth wants to make a comment, she'll bring him in.
Yeah, and I'll shamelessly piggyback on all the good work that the education officers and head teachers are doing alongside the teaching unions as well. So, and understandable, absolutely, you know, there's the big national messages around behaviour and the EIS survey. So we have a local copy of the EIS survey, so we are looking to match that with the incident reports. So, and we're looking to see if there are any hotspots or what the specific issues are on a school by school basis. We're also looking every time an incident happens, it goes two ways. It goes one to health and safety to see if there's any things we need to learn on a risk assessment basis, but also it goes to the additional support needs team to look if there are any issues or any triggers or any patterns that has caused that behaviour to happen, and that is monitored. So that when the teachers fill in a form about violence and aggression, then we look to see what the cause was, if there's anything we can do to improve. We also look to, we work hand in hand with health and safety, saying, are we keeping everybody as safe as we possibly can? So I will let Michael come in on that because I know he's done a huge amount of work on this recently. Inclusion, we in Inverclyde are an inclusive society. We expect that young people will come to school. They will sometimes make mistakes, and we will aim to keep good order and discipline in all of our schools. We also need to look at children who have additional needs for whatever reason, and we need to look at the best support for that. We're very lucky in Inverclyde now. We've got specialist provisions as well as mainstream schools. Not all areas have that luxury, but we have within very short distances different ways of dealing with that. And you'll see in the further report coming to the committee that we're looking at being imaginative around that. And do we spend time in the classroom? We all go around schools. We have a very, very thorough visit and peer review where head teachers, education officers, Michael's part of that review, go into the classes. You can't spend too long in one class because you alter the dynamics, so you won't necessarily see a normal life. But what I can assure you is when the incidents come, they are monitored by the team at the centre to see what we can do to support the teachers and the young people themselves. We don't always get it right, but we also want to learn from those things. Michael, I'll hand over to yourself because I know you probably have a lot more to add to this.
No, just not for you, convener, not a huge amount, Ruth. You've covered a lot of it. Just to reassure committee that we have seen a significant sort of a step change in our reporting and recording processes, and a lot of that has been around communicating out to practitioners as to how that's to be done and should be done, so that we can be sure that we've got accuracy in what's being reported. That there has been, and it's well reported, I think, an increase in what we would call critical incidents, or instance where there's Paula joined just at this moment in time. And we've had a good look at that process with the unions, and I think what we're doing, as Ruth's spoken about, every fortnight we have what's called the authority screening group, and all of the critical incidents that have been reported into the centre are reviewed by the lead officers for inclusion, including the education health and safety rep, who matches across what we have on ICON. So we can see, on the basis that that's accurate, we can see what they are, and we're looking at patterns for individual young people or schools, and that's then allowing us to target our support. So you may know that there was some money released to education services from the Scottish Government recently. I think our share was approximately £12,000. Not a significant amount of money, but what we have done is used it to support schools to send staff on training that we run as an authority. It's called PPB training. This is a 2-day course, which ultimately about 20% of the course is about how to safely hold a child if that's required as an intervention, but the other 80% of the course is about how not to, how to de-escalate, how to avoid having to do that. And so that money is allowing us to release staff where we can see maybe there are a larger number of critical incidents to support them with training. So we're trying to tie in the data that we've got to the response that we have. And as Ruth's just said, yes, we do spend time in schools, in and out of schools a lot. I had the pleasure of being in Inverkip all day yesterday. And yes, okay, it's a focused review, but we're absolutely getting a good sense of what's going on. There's a questionnaire sent out to all stakeholders as part of that. And we're in the throes of inspection at the moment. We've had 3 in about 6 weeks. And there is an absolute paragraph that has to go into one of the quality indicators about behaviours and relationships. There's always been commentary about that, but there's now an explicit sentence or paragraph going into those reports and being shared with us. And obviously those reports will come to you in time, but I've only heard good things so far.
Thanks, Michael. Tommy?
Yeah, thanks for that, Michael. Thanks, Ruth. Miss McEwen, I would be interested to hear her points as well. Thanks.
I'm not going to put Paul on the spot. If she's wanting to comment, I'll let her comment. Paul, would you like to comment?
So I only came in as Michael was speaking, so I don't know what, I get that it's around behaviour in schools, but I don't know what the question was.
Well, it was in response to the EIS survey in Aberdeen, where the stats, there was 800 teachers surveyed and maybe half had reported seeing violent incidents every day, and a third had said they'd been assaulted at some point. And I was just asking Ruth and Michael what Inverclyde are doing about that and what we're doing to support our staff and inclusivity, which is a good thing. But obviously, if an incident happens in the class, it can affect all the pupils in the class. And I was just asking them if they spend time in the classes as well to get a feel for what's going on at the grassroots, shall we say. I just wonder if you get any comments on that.
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to echo what Michael has said. Aberdeen did their own survey, but Inverclyde have results off the back of the EIS national survey. And off the back of those local results, we've worked with the health and safety team, we've worked with Barry Steele, who's the ASN education officer, about the processes are there. They're not always used, or they're not always used properly. So we've had a massive push both from Michael and from the trade union side around getting that procedure as streamlined as we can and getting that information to staff and out. So we are seeing an uptick in reporting. I don't think that means that there's more incidents. I just think people are becoming more confident in the reporting of that. We've sent out additional signage for schools. We've sent out a 1-page, well actually it's a 3-page, but one document that's got all the policies, it's got the procedures, it's got advice in there. All of that has been sent out to teachers, but Michael's also shared it with heads of establishments. So there's a shared message going out across the authority around what to do if a violent or aggressive incident happens. And there is space built into that for not just the pupil who's displaying the dysregulated behaviours to get time to regulate, but also for the staff and for the other pupils to get time within that system so that they can get themselves back to a place where they're ready to teach and they're ready to learn. So I think absolutely I would just echo what Michael has said around all of that.
Yeah, thanks, Paula. Michael, just one final question. You mentioned a question earlier. Does that go to all staff, teaching and non-teaching?
Yes, it's an anonymous questionnaire.
Thank you.
Goes out to parents as well and partners.
Thanks. Is that you, Tommy? Can I just thank Ruth, Michael and Paula for that, because I think that was a full reply we've got, and I think it shows, thanks for the question as well, Tommy, and I think it shows how seriously we take the issue within Inverclyde and the steps that we use and to try and do what we can as an education authority to make sure that young people and teachers are safe in their classrooms. So thanks to Ruth, Michael, Paula and yourself, Tommy. So I've got a couple of questions online. Can I go to Fiona first? Fiona?
Hi, it was just a comment Oh, sorry, am I getting feedback there? I fully intend to be relatively quiet on these meetings as you guys are the experts, but just as a parent, I felt it was worth commenting on the Inverclyde STEM Festival and its importance, but also beyond being a parent, professionally, I've actually worked with Equate in the past, and in terms of improving credence of Inverclyde's efforts, we should be shouting about that from the rooftops, some of the work that they're involved in at a wider level. So it's just a bit of a flag and positive feedback. Thanks.
Okay, no, thank you, Fiona. Councillor Quinn, Lynn?
Yeah, thanks. I've just got questions on the 310 and 311. So just like Fiona, it's okay, I'm just a parent as well who happened to get elected, so you're in good company. So I just wanted to talk about STEM as well. As everybody said, it's, you know, really important for our women and girls to realise, you know, those subjects are for them, and having a girl who's actually at high level education in science, it's important for her to know that, you know, she can translate that into the world of work, and it's great to see this event actually helping with that. I'm just conscious that we've actually got a counsellor in, you know, one of our counsellors is a woman in STEM, you know, she is a pharmacist working in this field, so I don't know if she has been involved, if she's willing to be involved. I've just kind of outed her here at committee, but it'd be great to see her involved in here, because she's an example, you know, of a woman it's actually walk to walk. So it'd be great if we could get Councillor Reynolds involved as well. And right on to vaping as well. So it's great that we're actually taking action as having kids in school understand how serious this problem is. And some of the, you know, research is coming out. It's not just about the effects of those vaping, but actually we're getting reports now about the effects of second-hand vaping. So our kids in the toilets in our PE departments, and, you know, if there's an issue there, then the kids that are not vaping are still having the effects. So Michael, I know you mentioned something about additional resources. It was just one of the things that had come up before was about some of our young kids being addicted to the vaping, and, you know, it's not about, so a lot of our stuff's about prevention, but is there addiction support for those that are in there with the vapes and are struggling to give them up? Thanks.
Michael, would you like to comment? And then I'll get
For you, Kevina, yeah, absolutely, Lynn. That struck me. I think we were both maybe in one of the focus groups at a similar time at Clyde Conversations, and there was quite a serious point made about what health support was there. Certainly, our substance officers had knowledge of, or there's signposting that can be done in that regard, and there's a lot of material that we have put out into schools, posters, etc. That I was in a school the other day, and I did catch sight of them, but just trying to make sure that it's one thing. It's trying to have focused sessions as well within the curriculum to ensure that young people understand their options if they are addicted. I think possibly we need in education to work a little bit more closely with health to better understand what support is there that we can even better signpost young people to. But it was a very pertinent point that we're making about effectively becoming addicted to something.
Yes, and about the STEM festival that shows the how we in the area the size of Inverclyde can work to our strengths. So with elected members, officers and members of the community who are involved in STEM work. So Councillor Reynolds was at the very first meeting about the STEM festival, because it was herself and a gentleman involved in STEM work who's instigated the festival. I would have to say, since then, officers have taken it. I would love to say it was me, but it's not. It's others, and have absolutely made this their own, including our science ambassador, who, and if you go into schools, as we do, you'll see some of the young primary children having made hats with moving parts in them, which are absolutely gorgeous little crocodiles that can bite you and everything. So it shows how everything can be joined up together, and it's become a really exciting project.
Thank you, Ruth. Any other questions? Can't see anything online. And just a shout out from my own daughter, who of course is an industrial chemist who specialises in polymers, who is now working in an environmental field to find out how they can safely dispose of polymers and plastics. So again, that's fine. STEM challenge there. So again, are we getting any further questions, anybody? If not, can we agree a very full report? And thank you, Michael, for that. And also Tommy for his question that wasn't quite on the report, but hopefully it allowed the committee to get that feel of exactly what we're doing in that. So thanks for that. Can we move to agenda item number 11? Now, this agenda item should have been probably higher up in the report. It should have been under new business rather than routine decisions. It's a new paper. But I'll let Michael just introduce it. Michael.
Yep, through you, convener. I've had a technical problem and the electronic packs that I have just decided not to open, but I'm pretty sure I can talk to this without it. So this is an update report coming to committee about a piece of work that we've done over quite a piece of time now. Can everyone hear me? Just my connection's okay, is it?
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay, sorry. Oh, you just went into stunned silence and I wasn't sure whether you were all still there. So a piece of work that we've done at Lomond View Academy over quite a period of time now. And I suppose in many ways it speaks to one of the question that Councillor McVeigh asked around, you know, behaviour in schools and in terms of getting it right for every child. We got to a point where I think we recognised that what got us here will not get us there, and that Lomond View potentially needed a bit of a rethink, particularly coming out of the pandemic. You'll also recall that a few years ago, now 2 years ago almost, we established the virtual school in Inverclyde, and the virtual school, whilst virtual, does have staff as part of it, and they were co-located and work at Lomond View. So we also at that time were identifying an issue with increased spending on out-of-authority placements. So this is where the ESN Monitoring Forum within Inverclyde would identify that it wasn't possible for the authority to meet their needs and would potentially then need to make a request to an independent provision somewhere in locally to us. And as you can imagine, they are quite costly. We began through budget monitoring to notice that we were heavily overspending on that budget line. And we also had you know, in conjunction with our colleagues in HSCP, a number of young people who had maybe been in residential and education placements out with the authority who potentially needed to come back, but we needed to look again at the provision in Inverclyde for them. So as part of delivering differently to address that budget overspend, we put in place a piece of work that looked at various models which are outlined, I believe, in Appendix 2 in the report. And they basically show you the variety of options that we have for young people to have their educational needs met at Lomond View. And we've been trialling and testing those over the last year, although the full project really got off the ground with enhanced staffing around about August time of this academic year. But already the report, I think, from memory, outlines the impact that we're having in terms of levels of engagement and improved curriculum offer that is better meeting the needs of young people at Lomond View. We have the option for young people to attend Lomond View full-time, although even those young people tend to have a variety of other options within their curriculum pathway, which we also include college placements. We've got a large number of young people who are part-time between their mainstream school and Lomond View. We've got a particular provision where we're trying to look at supporting young people who are really struggling to get into their own school physically. So they'll come and have some direct teaching input at Lomond View. And the other models are there, including a primary provision, which will come back to you and report on in May time. So this report really is to update you on the piece of work that we've done, to outline the impact that we have had. And key to this is that we, so far in this academic year, since we really got the models up and running, we haven't had to make a referral for a young person out with Inverclyde, and we've worked with our colleagues in HSCP to identify 2 or 3 youngsters who are either in an educational placement out with the authority or in a residential education placement, and we're now putting plans in, because one of the models is expressly designed to support a young person to come back in to be educated in their community in Inverclyde. So in terms of that spending a budget agenda, we haven't spent any extra money. on it. Our challenge, however, is that there may be times when that decision is taken out of our hands through an ASN tribunal, for example. So we are confident that the provision that we've got is significantly improved and evolving through continuous improvement like any school, and we feel now the time is right to secure the leadership of Lomond View through a kind of co-head model where the head of Lomond View would also be the head of the virtual school, so they would have dual responsibility, and a deputy head post would be introduced to the model, which hasn't existed before, to give daily operational capacity to the school, which would mean that the role of the virtual head would not be significantly diminished. And that's been in place since August, and that's worked exceptionally well to have that whole holistic approach to the provision. Without seeing sight of my report, I think that's me. I think we're asking you to, there's a couple of points for noting. If I remember, someone may wish to read them out. I do apologise.
That's fine, Michael, you're fine. What I would ask members, if they've got any questions regarding the workshop, if you can please them, they'll be in the private part, because it might be able to identify particular people. If there's none of that, can I bring Elizabeth in for the first question? Elizabeth?
Thanks, Kevin. I think this is a really, really welcome report that's really come out of request through this committee for quite a while. It was becoming quite frustrating to a number of us that not only was Lomond View not seeming to be functioning the way we needed it to function, but also we were seeing an increase again in out of authority placements and the pressure on that budget, which was partly why Lomond View was set up in the first place. So not only was Lomond View not necessarily doing what we felt it could be doing, but we were also having the initial problem returning again. So having a new model and not being, I guess, stubborn about it and kind of go, no, let's try something different and do something that is going to make a difference is absolutely the right thing to have done. And so thank you very much for bringing the report forward. I think we've got one of the bullet points, the final bullet point is that we'll get a future report on the primary provision. I'm wondering if we can maybe just keep getting some reports on how this new model is panning out generally, because I think we do need to keep an eye on it and continue to be agile, and if things need to change and adapt, then we've done it, and we can keep doing it to make sure that this provision works, would be my first ask. Second thing is really about something that's mentioned in 4.2. Is it 4.2? Yes, where we're kind of talking about low and non-attendance at school, which I guess has always has been with us forever, but has, I think, culturally become a much bigger issue across the education system since the pandemic. And I'm really just wondering if we can have some discussion at a future committee about how we as an education system are pivoting resources and pivoting how we do things and the way that we work and engage with parents and pupils, and the kind of the wider people, the village that are bringing kids up who are choosing not to be at school or who are unable to be at school in a far greater number than previously, to make sure that they're not missing out and that we're getting it right for them too. I just think it's a bigger deal now and a bigger number of young people than we would have been dealing with before, so we need a system change to be absolutely holding all of that safely. That's my second ask. And my third one's a very quick question. I think this is the first time we've had a report about Thrive. Is that correct? This is the first time we've had it brought to us at committee. Good to see it and fantastic. I really do welcome it, but I might have liked to see a wee bit about it before now.
Would you like this comment?
Okay, so in answer to your first and third point about the updates on the ASN provision, and so yes, absolutely happy to, because as you know, these are taken forward as a test of change, and we'll see how the resources have to moved about the system in order to facilitate that. So Lomond View, we're now happy with that. The Thrive, happy to take on board the feedback. Yes, it's the first time this committee secretary has seen that, although Michael has brought things back saying we're looking at delivering ASN and inclusion in making sure we're meeting people's needs in a variety of different ways. In response to your second question, which was about the attendance, the stats that have been released today for the statistics for schools will be installed, so we haven't had a chance to analyse them in great depth. But also alongside those statistics is a national drive to look at attendance, particularly around one-off attendance, but also longer term attendance. The statistics has, and I think it's the first time I've seen it, people who've got attendance above 90% and below 90%. So we're looking at people who have got longer term attendance issues. Inverclyde are sitting about the middle from what I can see, but we're happy to bring back further more in-depth report on attendance issues in Inverclyde. We've done a lot of work on actual attendance, and our schools are now sitting, I think, just above the national average, which is not historically where we sat. Attendance in Inverclyde has historically been quite low, but I have to bring up a report back on attendance. Michael, I don't know if you've got anything else to add to that.
Nothing significant, Ruth, just to say that the annual standards and quality report on the service improvement plan will come to the May committee, and there will be a section, sort of a case study section, a section around attendance with our attendance data in there. If you felt after that was presented you wanted more, then we could easily do another report.
Thank you.
Is that okay, Liz?
That's perfect, thanks.
And yeah, we could at that meeting if you want to go again. Robert?
Thank you. I have to say, I want to thank Education Service because they did offer me the opportunity to go to visit. But unfortunately, during the time, I found it good to make it. But it really is good to share the report here because you know, 4.3 today, we know people that identified the might require to attend permanent education placement. At the start, when we set up Overview, I was all part of it, you know, that we could keep the young people here who had professional needs. It is the same travelling inside the district, which we should really sell. But another thing, Overview Academy, that name came from the people in there. They had an ownership at school at the time, and they picked it themselves because we were refurbishing all over the state, and we had to make sure that everybody was inclusive in that. So that's the reason that name was picked. But the other thing I like in this report is I reached out to Main Street and the St Michael place is another good detail, in my opinion. Absolutely. That if a young person is capable to move in back to the Main Street or ASF, then we give them a pathway to do that. And I think that's a great thing as well. I think really if you look at I don't know if kind of we had extra staff over the costs, say, but it seems to be we're concentrating a lot more staff on this purpose, which is really paying dividends in my opinion. And I think the leadership out there in the sector as well. And I just think that this report is just the start of us going forward to what we do. And I hope that we get further reports and we can see the progress it made. Because when I did up there, a couple of young people were doing the Together Report Awards. You know, that's the scale that some of the young people have in there. So all this is the start of their road to not recovery, a road to doing things differently. So every young person then go and do, they get the same chance as everyone else.
Thanks for your comments, Michael. I'm looking to see, I can't see any other questions online or comments online. Can we thank for this report and agree the report? And David, thanks for your attendance. Can we move to agenda item number 12, which is the devolved school management? Michael?
Yep, through you, convener. Good news. I've turned my blocker off so I can now see my reports again. So this is can't quite believe we're 2 years since we last brought this to you. This is the devolved school management scheme of delegation document. You may recall when we brought it to you 2 years ago, we done a huge piece of work to get this into the shape it now is. in, and the scheme of delegation, which is attached as Appendix 1, there's a statute requirement to review it every 2 years, and that is what we have done. The main method of review was to take it through the LNCT, and we felt it continued to be fit for purpose, and that the changes that we made 2 years ago were working well, and there wasn't a need to do any kind of review in any great depth. So it's just the recommendation is asking members of the Education Committee to agree the contents of this report in relation to the devolved school management scheme of delegation, and agree that the scheme is approved for a further 2-year period.
Thank you, Michael. I'll open up to any questions. Job? Was that a legacy? Thanks. I can't see anything online. Can't see anything in the room. Can we agree the report?
Great.
Thank you. Can we move to agenda item number 13, which is education services, child protection guidelines. And again, I think that's yourself, Mike.
Yes, through you, convener. So this has been a significant piece of work over a period of time, where the Education Service is required to have its own child protection guidance that stems from the multi-agency, locally agreed multi-agency child protection guidance, which is referenced there at 1.3, which stems from the national guidance. Education Services had an existing set of guidance, and we have made sure that this guidance is now fully conversant with the amendments made by the Inverclyde Child Protection Committee to its multi-agency guidance. And in section 3 in the background and context, it gives you links to the national guidance and as well as other key documents that underpin the child protection guidance. Just to say, one of the things that we've decided to do as an education service is to create our own subcommittee or subgroup, if you like, that would stem from the Inverclyde Child Protection Committee. I'm the vice chair of that committee. Lawrence Riley, our principal educational psychologist, is on that committee with me, as is Hazel Mitchell from Newark Nursery School. And we're going to be meeting on a regular basis after each multi-agency the Inverclyde Child Protection Committee meets, to ensure that we then share out the key messages and actions to a wider subcommittee of head teachers. And I launched the concept last week of an even more in-depth child protection audit process that head teachers fully welcomed and embraced, actually, which will allow us to then ensure, we already do that, but we wanted it to be even more detailed than it currently is, because it crosses over into aspects like medication and health and safety. So to pull it all together and do that on a 3-year cycle, not in line with, but just slightly out of line with our peer review process that we do. So we would go in year 1 to do a peer review of the school, and then in the second or third year we would do a child protection audit, which will ensure that we are finding that this guidance is actually being implemented. So committee is being asked to note the Education Service Child Protection Guidelines. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Michael. I've got a question from Pam, first of all. Pam.
Thanks, convener. Well, first of all, I want to say that I do welcome the document. I think it's comprehensive and I think it's clear. My issue, and I don't think it's just semantics, my issue is about the words guidelines and procedures. When paragraph 1.1 in the document says, sets out and outlines procedures. Now, I've spent too long debating about guidelines and procedures, and for me it's not just a word, it's not just semantics. Procedures, guidelines for me suggest some sort of extensive a la carte, and procedures are a set menu. And I think all our staff, all our children, young people and families should expect the same thing to happen in a given presented situation. And I balked at guidelines. I mean, I would like the report to say child protection procedures rather than guidelines. As I say, the actual document starts off with procedures. So my problem or my issue is with guidelines, because I don't, it's not some sort of pick and mix. I mean, the idea is that there should be a reasonable expectation for all involved about what will happen with a given presented situation. And I'm sorry to be labouring the point, but for me, it is actually quite important. Thank you.
Well, I'm not at all. I mean, words are important. Ruth, I'll get the comment first.
Yes, and I'll beg Michael's knowledge on this, but I think this stuff got this policy. And then I think we would probably, so actually I'm taking on board your comments about procedures, and we can look at the title of this. Michael, I don't know if you've got any other thoughts, but I think the original title of this was Child Protection Policy.
Yeah, through your convener, I mean, the Inverclyde Child Protection Committee has procedures, multi-agency procedures, which are referenced, and I'm pretty sure, although I need to go and double check it, that they suggest that services have guidelines. What I would just reassure you, Councillor Armstrong, is that these are stringently followed by schools. We've got a school being inspected this week. We had one last week, one 3 weeks ago, and the quality indicator on 2.1, the child protection guidance, is thoroughly looked at down to faulty fire doors and medication that's out of date. I mean, that's why what I'm conveying to you is that we as a service want to ensure that we've got a thoroughly rigorous way of ensuring that these procedures are being implemented in full, and I can guarantee that every single leader in every single establishment takes this very, very seriously.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Any other further questions? Nancy in line, and I thank you very much. Oh, sorry, yep.
Very quick one, Convener, and it's just this actually just shows how easy it is to please me, how easily pleased I am. I just again want to commend how this is presented, because I think it has to be a usable document for staff. It has to be something that people can pick up and they've got the right information at their fingertips. And I really, really like the key reference documents section where we've embedded documents, which means that you can be guaranteed, and I hope there is someone who is tasked with updating this on an ongoing basis, that when you click on the embedded document, it will always be the most up-to-date version that's there, and you're never going to be looking at anything that's static or out of date. So I really do commend the service on that decision.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Through your convener, this document will be reviewed annually by the subgroup. Even though the overall multi-agency guidance might not be, we're going to review it annually because there's so much learning that goes on a regular basis. And what we do is we provide an annual update to schools, which is the child protection training that's done on the in-service days in August. So this policy will be reviewed at this time of year by our subcommittee, and it will then feed the child protection presentations, and all schools, educational establishments will get a revised version of this document you're looking at, completely up to date, and the training package for their staff.
Thank you, Michael. Have we got any other questions on that? Now, do we have any questions on the staffing structure before it? No, I don't need to move to public business. Okay. Thank you. And thank you for their attendance today, and thank you for their input as well. Thank you.